Welcome back. All right, so a lot on the board. We've got a review here, we've got a little bit of news here, and a preview for tomorrow on this side of the board. So very different from usually what happens, but it's just the one game tonight. And I figured with Columbus and Pittsburgh, the promise I'd kind of made myself tonight was that if Columbus won this game, that I would do a video on Columbus and the playoff chase that they're in, but they did not. So we're going to start off with that. And I'm also going to say, too, I went out shopping with the wife tonight. Her birthday's tomorrow. So got her a few things tonight. And yeah. And then tomorrow is the birthday. So the NHL's made sure I can spend zero time because it's hockey from 10 a.m. until about 10 p.m. tomorrow. So there you go. The NHL. And their wonderful schedule. So let's start things off with the discussion of Columbus and Pittsburgh and what took place tonight in Pittsburgh. 5:28 in, Malkin scores from Tomasino and Dewar, and then at 13:51, Achari scores from Lizotte. So Columbus, a team that's very good offensively at home. On the road, it's been more of a challenge. And trailing 2-0, it doesn't look good. And then at 14:07, they do answer, so that's only 16 seconds later. Jenner gets his first of the season from Matejchuk and Provorov. However, less than a minute later, Pittsburgh gets the 2-goal lead back. Raquel from Rust and Crosby. It's 3-1 Pittsburgh after the first. Second period, Columbus would score early at 1:35. It's Danforth from Olivier and Severson, so a little bit of hope there. And then at 8:15, Imama scores for Pittsburgh from Heinen and Hayes. Before the period's out at 15:31, Crosby reaches the 25-goal mark. He scores from Grzelcyk, and I think he's only 4 points short of guaranteeing himself at least a point per game this season, which he's going for the 20th season. I think that's the record if he gets it. I think Gretzky and him are tied with 19. But either way, Crosby going for a record. I think he's going to get it. And Pittsburgh up 5-2 after 2 periods of play. In the third, Columbus would kind of make it close again. Kent Johnson scoring from Corrali and Chinikov at 3:45. But eventually the empty netter takes place. Pittsburgh hits the empty net. Rust from Raquel and Nedeljkovic at 18:03. So Nedeljkovic with an assist to go with his goal from earlier this season. And Pittsburgh wins this one 6-3. Pittsburgh pulls themselves closer to a playoff spot, but Columbus does not. So Pittsburgh 6 points out of a playoff spot currently. Columbus is still just 3 points back, but it just feels like 20 with the way things have been going for them lately. Shots on net actually favor Columbus the whole way. 13-12 in the first, 16-12 in the second, 18-10 in the third. 81 shots in this game. Shots are 47-34 Columbus. Power plays Columbus 0 for 2, Pittsburgh 0 for 1. The hits 27-16 Pittsburgh. Merzlikins 28 saves on 33 shots. Nedeljkovic had himself a night. 44 saves on 47 shots. All right, next up, we're going to talk about a little bit of news of the day. Owner Ryan Smith of the Utah Hockey Club answered a tweet from somebody stating that, in the county they live in, there really isn't much in the way of hockey rinks. Makes sense. Utah's not been a hotbed of hockey. But he wants to try to make sure there's an ice rink in every state municipality. So he has the money, he has the sway, he has some political clout in Utah. Ryan Smith's going to do his best to try to make sure that there's more hockey rinks, which definitely helps. You get the kids playing hockey, they grow up watching hockey. Next thing you know, you've got some NHLers coming out of Utah. We've seen that with California, we've seen that with Arizona. Certain states, you do see that, where you get that. And Nevada, at some point, we're going to start seeing NHLers coming out of Nevada, I think, because they do their best to build that ecosystem and to have the kids playing, because then you're actually building the fan base for the National Hockey League. So all the best to Smith and his efforts. Good news for Oiler fans. Stuart Skinner cleared today of concussion protocol. So coming out of last night, he didn't finish that game because he got pulled for concussion protocol. But he is able to play tomorrow for Edmonton, and they're at home against Seattle. So I'll go ahead and say Skinner very likely gets the start there. Now, I've started seeing, with the discussion of the playoff format, I've started to see some discussions of, okay, so if we had a 3-2-1 point system, so 3 for a regulation win, 2 for an overtime win, and then, or for overtime or shootout win, and then 1 point for the overtime or shootout loss. The problem is, and I've done this myself before, and I went, see, it didn't change anything. But too simplistic to look at it that way, because we're not playing in that system. Teams would play different if they knew that if they won in regulation, they get 3 points, And I think we would see very, very different strategies employed by coaches. I think we'd honestly see more wide open play with the last 5 minutes left. We might not see teams being quite as conservative, but I mean, that was something that was said when they originally brought overtime back as well. The idea that, well, now teams won't just play for the tie, and then they did. But either way, the 3-2-1 point system can kind of work. It can make for an interesting reading of the standings. I know when I look at the PWHL standings, I kind of have to look and go, okay, so that this column and carry, and then there's a niner. I screwed it up again. It'll start all over. Like it can get kind of a bit much. But if you get used to it, right? That's the thing. You just got to get used to it. So I don't think the NHL is going to go to a 3-2-1 system. The same as I've seen all this, hey, if they change the playoff format, but they're not going to. Neither the NHLPA nor the NHL has any interest in changing the format. And it is the networks that created the division. It's the networks that asked for these rivalry matchups. They didn't like in the 1 versus 8 system, 2 versus 7, that you may not know who you're playing in the next round early on. So you can't really build up that next round, build up the hype from a network perspective. That's a big part of the reason why we have the setup that we do now. And I don't think there's going to be any change. So it has been a topic of conversation. I've done videos on both the point system as well as changing the playoff format. I just don't think there's an appetite within the National Hockey League to do so. All right, let's go ahead and preview tomorrow's action. So 14 games. First game starts at 10 Eastern, 1 Pacific, and that is the Vancouver Canucks in New York against the Rangers. It is the Pettersson-Miller matchup. But more importantly, both of these teams are below the playoff line. They both need wins. Vancouver 32-25-12 overall, 5-4-1 in their last 10 games, and they're 1 point back of a playoff spot. The Rangers 33-31-6 overall. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10, 2 points back of a playoff spot. So it is interesting because the perception is out there that things are going better for the Rangers since the Miller trade. They did initially, but the Rangers have got back into their same flaws they had before. One player's not going to change a team that dramatically, and the Rangers have fallen into a lot of the same issues they were having before the Miller trade. 2 Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Philadelphia and Dallas. Philadelphia 28-34-8. They're 10 points back of a playoff spot. They're 2-8 in their last 10. I am concerned, though, as a Dallas fan, because this feels kind of like a bit of a trap game. Dallas is 43-21-4 overall. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. They're 3 points ahead of Colorado. Philadelphia's kind of due for a win. Dallas has been playing okay, not great lately, so we'll see what happens. 2 Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific start as well between Buffalo and Minnesota. Buffalo's 27-34-6. They're 14 points out of a playoff spot. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10. Minnesota 39-25-5 overall. They're 6 points ahead of St. Louis in that first wildcard spot. Minnesota 5-4-1 in their last 10 games. And Minnesota, this is a winnable game for Minnesota. This is one of those ones that, they should be able to get these 2 points. Buffalo should not create a huge problem for Minnesota, but Buffalo doesn't have any stress and any pressure, so we'll see how it goes. Then at 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, Chicago in St. Louis against the Blues. Chicago 20-40-9 overall. They're eliminated from playoff contention. 3-5-2 in their last 10 games. St. Louis 35-28-7 overall. They're 1 point ahead of Vancouver now, and 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. St. Louis playing very, very well. And this is a game that should be a slam dunk, but Chicago could make things difficult too. 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific start between Calgary and the Islanders. The Islanders, the hosts here. Calgary, 32-25-11, so almost the exact same record as the Canucks. They're 4-3-3 in their last 10. They are 2 points out of the playoffs. The Islanders, 32-28-8 overall. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They are also 2 points out of the playoffs. So this should be an intense matchup. Will be fun to watch. Also at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific, and this is the last early game that I think I can do a cutoff and do a review of all these 6 games, and then I can review the other 8 later on in the evening. That I think would be nice. I'd like to be done early-ish tomorrow night since there's a 7:30 start. But it'd be nice to, have a little bit of time with the wife. 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific start between Carolina and LA. So this would be the last game that I'd get reviewed before the evening games get started and things get busier. Carolina 42-22-4 overall. They're 8 points clear of New Jersey in that second spot. Pretty secure that they're going to be that second second seed in the Metropolitan Division. The Kings, 37-21-9 overall. They're 7 points clear of Vancouver. So Vancouver, the next team in their division beneath them. Yeah, LA's top three. That shouldn't be a problem. And they're 6-3-1 in their last 10, and they're at home. So this will be a really good game. I think it'll be close. I also predict probably low scoring. Then we get to a little bit later at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific, the Florida Panthers in Washington against the Caps. This should have a playoff feel to it. The Florida Panthers, 42-24-3 overall. They're tied with Toronto atop the Atlantic, and they're 7-3 in their last 10. Washington, 46-15-8. They are 12 points ahead of Carolina at the top of the division, and they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. So absolutely should be a phenomenal game there between the Panthers and the Capitals. Also at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific, Tampa Bay in Utah against the Utah Hockey Club. For Tampa Bay, they're 40-23-5 on the season. They're 2 points back of both Toronto and Florida atop the division. It is quite the logjam at the top of the Atlantic. So 6-3-1 in their last 10 for Tampa. On the Utah side, they're 31-27-11. They're 4 points back now of that final playoff spot. They are 5-3-2 in their last 10. If you're a Utah fan, you have to hope that St. Louis slows down. They're not really looking like they're going to slow down either. So we'll see how that goes. And then 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Only 3 games starting then. So it is a quiet evening in the National Hockey League. It's just hockey all day. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start. Colorado in Montreal against the Habs. Colorado 42-23-5 on the season. They're 4 points ahead of Minnesota, so pretty secure in third place. And still looking at the fact they're only 3 points back of Dallas, right? Although Dallas does have 2 games in hand. Montreal 33-27-8 overall. They're 6-1-3 in their last 10. They're 2 points ahead of both the Islanders and the Rangers in that hunt for that final playoff spot. So if Montreal wins, and if both the Rangers and the Islanders lose, that would put Montreal kind of in the driver's seat. They'd be 4 points clear in all likelihood. Depending on who else is on the board here, who else is less than 4 points out? Well, Detroit's 4 points out. You know what? No, they'd be good. They'd be 4 points ahead. So I just want to make sure there's nobody who's 3 points out that I missed. Somebody will point it out. But yeah, Montreal could really make things better for themselves by beating the Avs. But the Avs have been really, really good. Then at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific as well, Ottawa in New Jersey against the Devils. Ottawa 36-27-5. They're 3 points ahead of Montreal in that wild card spot. So they're not as secure as Ottawa fans, I think, would hope, but some wins here would help. The Devils, 37-27-6 on the season. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They're 8 points ahead of the Islanders and the Rangers. So they're pretty secure in that third spot. And it shows you that both wild cards are out of the Atlantic this year. So there you go. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, Toronto in Nashville against the Preds. We'll see if the Preds have a better effort against Toronto than what we saw of them against Anaheim last night. Toronto 42-24-3 overall. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. They are tied with Florida atop the division. Nashville 25-35-8 overall. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10. 19 points back of a playoff spot. So not very long until Nashville's going to be mathematically eliminated from a playoff possibility. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific start. Detroit in Vegas, so that's an early start for the Vegas Golden Knights. Detroit 32-30-6 on the season, 2-8 in their last 10, and they're 4 points out of a playoff spot. That last 10 games is just absolutely submarined any chances they had at the playoffs, really. And then Vegas 40-20-8 overall. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. They're 3 points ahead of Edmonton atop the division. Speaking of Edmonton, they play at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. So the late starts won't really have any overlap. Not a whole lot of overlap anyways with the earlier games. Seattle and Edmonton, I'm hoping that's an interesting game. Same with the Boston San Jose one. But first, Seattle and the Oilers. So Seattle's 30-35-5. They're 12 points out of the playoffs. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. They struggle against the Oilers. The Oilers are 40-24-5. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're only 2 points ahead of LA, and they're going to be without McDavid and Draisaitl. So if Seattle's going to pull off a huge upset, tomorrow might be their best opportunity that they've had this season. 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. Boston in San Jose against the Sharks. Boston 30-31-9. They're 5 points back of a playoff spot. They're not going to make it. They are 3-6-1 in their last 10. San Jose 18-42-9 on the season. Already mathematically eliminated from the playoff picture. And they're 3-6-1 in their last 10 as well. So you guys can let me know your picks for Saturday's games in the comment section below. I am wearing a Sioux Hunt jersey for anybody wondering. This, of course, is a Shoresy jersey. And the Sioux, they're so good. They're just so good. Anyways, and yeah, the jersey is kind of ridiculous, and that's kind of the point. It's kind of a ridiculous. I've got the white one too. Anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.